I have always had too many fun ideas for writing stories than I've been able to manage for myself, and honestly, if I could do something like Drawfee, but for stories, writing, literature, whatever, I absolutely would, but I don't think it's really that realistic for me. I don't know. But anyway, I was recently inspired while online a couple times for story ideas, and I'd really like to share them because I doubt I'll ever do anything with them for myself, but I really like them, so I want to put them out there. So I've recently watched a few Trash Taste podcast on YouTube episodes. After a while of not watching them, it's just occasionally I'll binge a bunch and then I just won't for a while. And one of them, I believe it was the Would You Rather episode, there came up the topic of mind reading. And I remember they were discussing the implications of mind reading and how if you can't like stop it or anything, you just read everyone's minds and how overwhelming and awful it would be and how romance would be dead because you already know what's in their mind and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. Which, sure. But it gave me the idea for a cute little romance story. So you have your mind reader who is both overwhelmed as well as probably bored and miserable with not being able to stop just hearing everyone's thoughts and knowing what's going on in their minds at all times. And then you have a character who would also be some sort of, you could say, neurodivergent, they have mental illness, mental disability, whatever, some sort of psychosis or like psychotic type thing. And I bring this up because this is something I've had myself. Well, I technically still have it. It's just managed at this point to a decent degree. So this person who has their disorder, whether it's schizophrenia or something similar, a point is, in their head, according to their brain, there are things that are completely untrue that they wouldn't help but be able to think. Perhaps it's hallucinations that they, see, hear, smell, whatever, or whether it's delusions, they believe things that aren't true. Maybe they're being paranoid, whatever. It's probably some combination of all of these. And the mind reader, they'd be able to pick up on all of it, and they'd know because they can read minds. They know what's going on in that brain. And I think it would just be kind of cute as like they end up together because for the mind reader it's kind of an escape. They get to have some fun with this, and then for the person with the psychosis it's just easier to bear with somebody else and someone who actually knows, like they can understand what they're going through in a way that they can also help them and be a sort of grounded resource and really just offer that sort of support and security and take it on together. And I just think it's really cute. And you could go with it, and then eventually, they're all together and telling all these tales that they live through together, like they actually happen as like alternate realities or something, to their grandkids and kids, whatever else. But really, it was just because the one of them had like their brain playing these not real things that felt entirely real, even if logically they knew they weren't, and the mind reader got to be part of that because they could see into their brain. And I just think it's a lovely little romance story. I like it. Then last night I was scrolling through Instagram as I sometimes do, and I came across this post. It said, "My daughter just called a cemetery a person garden. I'm not even sure what she thinks is happening there." And this was a screenshot from, I think, a Twitter account, or X, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, I liked it. I saved it because it inspired me. And I even left a comment, which reads, "Imagine if children grew from the ground and we used the bodies of our loved ones as fertilizer to help them develop before we harvest them as babies." And actually, I've since gotten reactions to that, including a reply that says that would be a cool sci-fi idea or something like that. And sure, I guess. I think it could be sci-fi or fantasy or, just whatever, anything. But I do really like the idea still. I think it would be fun to play with because there's so many implications there. I mean, first off, the idea of babies growing in a garden isn't entirely unique because, there's like Cabbage Patch Kids and that sort of stuff. So I've even played it with the idea for stories in the past where you have gardens or whether it's like a personal garden that each family has or a couple has, or whether it's more communal or just something like that, where the kids, they're growing from the gardens, and when they're harvested, they're newborn babies, right? That kind of thing. Of course, you'd still get some that were like, premature, or some that would come maybe a bit late. It's like you're underripe, you're overripe, that kind of stuff. But point I'm trying to get to here, though, is who the person who is in that plot would influence the children developing. I think that's that's a really fun sort of concept to play with. Like, what if the people who have been buried in that plot, their traits, their personality, their physical traits, even perhaps, or like maybe it's like a genetic amplifier sort of thing. So, like the genes that the kid already would have from their parents, like assuming these are ancestors, it would be a multiplier, and your kid would be more likely to have those sorts of traits or something. I don't know. And I imagine you'd have some groups like families or clans or something, tribes, where they'd specifically want their own people to be the ones who are fertilizing the next generations to come. And there could also be like some sort of really sweet aspects too, where, you know, say someone's mother or someone they're very close to dies, and or even like if it's a friend or something, perhaps just someone they're very very close to, or even the child's parent, right? And then they bury them in the ground where the child is growing, and then the child ends up just like that person or something. And that sort of idea could also then play into like a reincarnation sort of theme, or even the question of, is it reincarnation, or are these babies born with memories and identities, or not identities, but memories and knowledge from the people who were buried in their plots, to the point that sometimes it can be unclear to them if they were that person or if they're just that influenced by that person in their development that they know all that. So potentially there's a lot being passed on depending on who's there, but then also if there's like a war or something going on, and let's say there aren't enough bodies in the area, because if there's a war, yeah, people are dying, but they're not necessarily dying right there where the babies are. At least you don't want the war to be right there. But but at that point, I assume the babies would still be able to develop, at least, you know, maybe not to the same success rate or something. But then you have to wonder too, like, what would the kids be like as they grow up if there was no person who had died to fertilize their plot? And then you also have to consider, what if you take like random people, or what if someone would self-sacrifice for that sort of thing? Or it could be a ritualistic kind of thing. Like if there's a leader and they're going to have a child, and, you know, one of the members of their group does a sacrificial sort of thing so that they fertilize for the child. Oh man, there's just so many ways it could go. And I'm using the word fertilize, but I'm not exactly sure that that's the best word. I'm more thinking like, you know, you fertilize plants and crops and whatever, that soil, and then it's better for them usually. Well, I mean, depending, but that's a whole discussion on its own. But I just think this could be so fun to work with as an idea, and I'm barely even scratching the surface of it. I just wanted to throw that one out there too. I just really like it. It's exciting. I love the implications, the possibilities, etc.